Hey, you, have you ever started any new meeting with a person, a friend, a colleague, work environment, or interview like this? I sure hope everyone in here approves of me. I will make sure I hesitate, only say witty things and intelligent things, and agree with everything so I avoid their disapproval. Well, my darling, if you've ever done anything like that, that is the foundation of being a people pleaser. The cost of approval seeking is huge because it undermines your self esteem and you are placing more value on the opinions of what someone thinks about you than you are out of yourself. And let me just speak frankly, my darling, that takes the joy and sucks the joy out of life. So today I'm going to share with you 15 examples of what people pleasing looks like. And then afterwards, we'll talk about a few little things of how you can identify and adapt it so that you become more aware of it and start changing the behavior as you move forward. Because let's be honest, you didn't start it today, so it's impossible that you're going to stop doing it tomorrow. It does take time. But first, let's go through 15 common signs of approval seeking. And I have a list. I'll be looking down, reading, and looking at you. So you ready? So the first one, avoid saying no. You avoid saying no to others. You may fear they will become upset with you or they'll think that you're a bad person. So you usually say yes to everything, even if it adds more stress to your life. 2, hesitation. You often wait for the right thing to say, thus you speak way less than you normally do. 3, nervous laughter. I have done that. Nervous laughter. You're quick to laugh at whatever another person says, even if it's not that funny. Your laugh might come too quickly, too often, or at inappropriate times. 4, difficult with endings. Oh, I must say I've also done that. Difficulty with endings. You have a difficult time ending things, from conversations to friendships to romantic relationships. As a result, you may drag things out longer than you wanted them to. 5, overly agreeable. You smile, nod, and are very agreeable with others, regardless of your actual opinions on the subject. 6, avoid disagreements. You avoid disagreeing with others, challenging others, or stating alternative perspectives. 7, fear of judgment. And we've talked about this on my feed, is that fear is so incredibly destructive, because fear, as we have all learned, having our conversations together, fear is just that moment of, oh, I'm uncertain of what that is, and I don't feel comfortable. So I'd rather get stuck in the fear and let my emotions run over than it is to stop and go, hey, what is it exactly that I'm afraid of, and move forward. And that's one of the secrets to stop being a people pleaser. But I digress. Fear of judgment. You're afraid of the judgments of others, which can lead to nervousness, hesitation, overthinking, and social anxiety. Number 8, fear of upset. You are often afraid that others are secretly angry with you or critical of you, even though they seem to like you whenever you're together. This can lead to constant background of unease, and you may have you thinking that you've done something wrong when in actuality you haven't, or that someone is upset about something you've said or the way that you've acted or the way that you've dressed. It just creates a circle of uncertainty and unease in your person, which comes out in the way that you engage with other people. Number 9, the pressure to entertain. I still am working on that one. So the pressure to entertain is that you feel the pressure to have something great to share, such as funny or highly engaging stories about an adventure you've had. Number 10, second guessing or conversational replays. During an interaction, you experience self-consciousness, and doubt about how you are going to come across. You imagine you should be someone better than who you are, and afterwards you are replaying the interaction in your mind and find all the things you did wrong, you said wrongs, or ways that you may have upset the other person, and the things you could have said differently, which is such a waste of time and is so stressful. And you wonder why in society we have such an increase of anxiety and stress, especially when it comes in social situations, because not only are you dealing with the pressure of speaking clearly and concisely, but then when you go back after the interaction and you were replaying it and going, oh, how could I have done that better? How could I have done this better? Is such an unnecessary way of suffering. So by just learning these few little tools, because we're on number 10 and we have 5 more to go, and I'll be able to share them with you at the end of our 15. So, habitual apologies. You're quick to apologize out of habit, even for the most minor transgressions, like starting to speak at the same time of someone else, and you find yourself going, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. It just lessens your self-worth and your self-confidence by just starting off by saying you're sorry about something that there's no need to be sorry. The only time that you say you're sorry is if you can see that you've hurt somebody's feelings, your actions have hurt somebody else, or yourself, because it's always important to apologize to yourself when you've done something that hurts you also. Or if you physically caused hurt to another person, you say sorry. Other than that, it's not necessary. Number 12, submissive body language. You demonstrate submissive body language, such as looking away frequently or keeping your eyes down. That is such, even if you're full of self-confidence or if you're insecure in that specific moment and you're looking down all the time, people will look at your body language and they'll be like, oh, what's wrong with them? You know, they didn't have any self-confidence in themselves. And even though you are very confident in yourself, that your body language is portraying a different version of yourself. So it's always important to look at yourself and how you're standing. And there's so many fun ways that you can increase the testosterone in your body when you're going to go meet somebody. So for example, if you're going to have a meeting with another person and you're feeling a little nervous or a little insecure, you can just do the Superman pose or the Wonder Woman pose, where you stand with your legs shoulder width apart, and then you put your hands like this on your waist and you stand there with your shoulders back, chest up and engaged, neck up high, and you stand there for 2 minutes. And you know what that does is that from a biochemistry perspective, it increases the testosterone in your body. There was just a Harvard study done on this like 2 years ago. So, you know, they have this thing about fake it till you make it. Forget that. All you got to do is know these few little things that when you're feeling a certain kind of way, instead of succumbing to the fear, just go, oh my God, you know what I can do? I can do my Wonder Woman pose. And that brings you up and going. So when you are meeting with another person, you can engage from your most authentic and most beautiful self. Okay, number 13 is putting others first. You have a strong habit of putting others' needs ahead of your own and thinking that by doing that, let me do that again. Putting others first. You have a strong habit of putting other people's needs and desires before your own, thinking that if you do that, that you're being selfish. So if you're not putting somebody else's needs or wants before your own, you feel or you think to yourself that you're being selfish. That is not true, my darling. Without you, there is nothing else. So you can look at a situation and go, you know what? I don't feel like fish today. When you're with your friends and you're figuring out where you want to go to eat. And instead of being, oh, it's okay, everybody else wants to go have fish today. I don't particularly like fish, but I'm going to go with them. You can go, hey, no, I don't like fish. I don't want to go to a fish restaurant. Why don't we go to a restaurant that offers vegetarian options and perhaps meat and chicken and fish so that each one of us can have something to eat? And what you will find is that most people in the group are like, yeah, that's a great idea. And it's a more inclusive way of being. Instead of thinking, oh my God, no, I must put everybody else's desires and what they want above my own. Stop that. That's part of being a people pleaser. And there are always ways to think a little bit and then move and pivot in a different direction. So just by going, it's more inclusive if we go to a restaurant that all of us can eat at versus going to a fish restaurant that only 2 out of the 5 of us like. It's good to speak up. 14, not stating your desires. This is so important in every relationship, especially the one that you have with your partner. Stating your desires. So you rarely state what you want directly. Instead, you may suggest, imply something, and hope that the other person detects it. You often question your desires and think they might be either too much or not worthy of asking for. Not stating your desires. I have to say, man, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I so struggled with this. And then I learned something else, right? It's about increasing that muscle when it comes to your self-esteem and your self-worth and your self-confidence. So when you're with a partner, it could be your best friend, it could be your lover, it could be a colleague, it doesn't matter with whom. When you take the time to be at the table and actually state what you want. It could be that there's a choice between having a cheesecake and having creme brulee, and you don't like cheesecake. And the people pleaser in you will go, oh, but everybody else here likes cheesecake, so I'm just going to have cheesecake, which is also kind of a little victim mythology. You know what I mean? We were talking about that yesterday. Instead, focus more on going, hey, I'm not particularly interested in cheesecake, so why don't we offer an option and do let's order cheesecake from this place and order creme brulees from this place, and then all of us get what we want, instead of putting yourself out of the circle of stating what you want. Include yourself and come in and say, hey, I don't want that, I'd like this instead. It's also very important in the relationship that you have with your partner to share what you want, because as you get older and as your relationship dynamics change because of being comfortable with each other or just knowing how each other are, or perhaps at 10 years ago you liked doing something, and now when you're in your 50s you're like, yeah, I don't particularly like doing that. And instead of diverging the conversation, you can just say, hey, I no longer want to do A, B, and C. Let's sit down and let's negotiate. How can you and I both get what we want in our relationships without doing things that we no longer have an interest in doing? And that not only is a clear sign of clear communications, but it's also acknowledging your self-worth and your value and bringing yourself to the table by doing the things that you want. And you will find quite beautifully that your partner is also very receptive. And it's a fantastic way of communicating with each other, because sometimes it's just a learned skill. And if you didn't know it before, that's okay. And now you learn it. And the more you open this up to where you're starting to state your desires, it increases the intimacy in your relationships. It allows you to be more clear, more concise, and more open. And quite frankly, remember that buzzword from like 10 years ago? More authentic, because you're being present and you're being honest and you're being fully yourself. And that, my friend, is such a much easier way to be. And number 15, attempting to fit in and impress. Oh my God, isn't that so exhausting? So you try to fit in to groups by pretending to be interested in things you are not, or exaggerating about your experiences, your wealth, your achievements. All submissions to peer pressure is approval seeking. That's right. Say it again. All submissions to people pleasing. Oh, wait a minute. Let's say it again. All submissions to peer pressure is all about approval seeking. So it's very interesting, because when we're looking at the cost of approval seeking, it's where was it? It's right here. Oh, forget it. Okay, so the cost of approval seeking is your soul. Because you're either in a position where you feel so insecure about yourself that you're constantly pretending that if I am this kind of person, my friends, not your friends, because your friends and your family really, do know you your best. But if it's new people that you want to meet with, or if you're in a new work situation, or perhaps you're out in the dating market again and you're out there presenting yourself, you feel that instead of just being yourself and just enjoying your conversations and what you've learned, or learning to ask questions when you're with another person, you're like, fishing, you like fishing, I don't know anything about fishing. Instead of fronting and being like, oh my god, fishing, yes, when I was young, my father used to take me and it was really enjoyable, and it really wasn't. You can just say, oh my God, so fishing is one of your favorite hobbies. That's interesting. Ask questions. So what is it about fishing that you really enjoy? Share with me some things, because I really don't know anything. So you're in a position to learn something new without trying to front and think that you know something when you don't. And it's unnecessary. And it's time consuming and it's exhausting. And you wonder why so many people are dealing with exhaustion from social anxieties, from pressure to conform in such a way, because you don't always have to conform. You don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. Just be you and be happy. And the interesting thing about people pleasing is that it actually comes from your familial environment, right? So we have familial environment, we have our cultural narratives are all part of creating who we are. So people pleasing comes from, as a child, when you're with your parents, and it doesn't mean that we're supposed to hold our parents hostage forever for things that they just didn't know how to do in the time that we were in their care. As grown adults, it's important to forgive them for what they didn't know. It's important to forgive them for how they acted, reacted, or treated you in that sense of time, because they didn't even know any better. And if they did know any better, it doesn't matter, because now as adults, you can look at them and go, they really didn't have the skill sets to be able to speak to me from an emotionally intelligent place. And instead of holding myself hostage by being pissed off at them all the time for not knowing any better, then you forgive the action and release them and give yourself peace. And then you learn the skills of learning how not to be a people pleaser. So back to, where does it come from? As children, when you're in the care of your parents, we have a self-preservation mechanism to be able to read the situation very quickly. So if you see, as a very infant child, studies are amazing on this. If you're a small child, 2-3 years old, and you can see your parents, and you can see that if you're like, and funny and joking around, that you can change the mood of your parents, and you see that that's better. And when their mood is better, they treat you better and you feel safer in the environment. That is a self-preservation technique that you learned as a small child to be able to feel safe in the environment. And that's how you end up being a people pleaser, because in that certain situation, a child says, if I behave like this, then that parent is going to change their behavior and they're going to treat me better. Instead of being able to look at a situation as you would now as an adult, and if somebody was coming at you and they were treating you a certain kind of way, you could be like, hey, that's completely inappropriate. Back it up, put your stuff together, because that's not okay. If you want to talk about this, we can sit down and discuss this in a very calm and rational manner, but you ain't talking to me like that, right? When you're 2 or 3 years old, you don't know that. So the learned behavior of being able to read a room so that you feel safe in that environment, and it's compounded because you're doing it multiple times every single day. And not only are you doing it in your home environment, then you find yourself doing it in the school environment. If you play sports, if you're out with your friends, you're constantly looking at the situation to say, how do I feel safe in this moment, by acting theater in a certain way to make everybody else feel comfortable so that then you feel safe. So the great thing about what I do in my practice as a life coach is being able to clearly identify where these traumatic experiences come from. And instead of continuing to dwell in that past moment, we just do a few little tools and techniques to be able to address those moments that allow you to identify and define what it was, how you feel, and doing these 2 or 3 little things as you move forward to change the behavior and get to live the life you want. So I trust that this fantastic session that we discussed on 15 examples of what people pleasing looks like or approval seeking look like, and the few little tidbits that you got to learn in the process will help you move forward in understanding this is where the behavior comes from. This is how I identify with this situation. And in the future, I will apply this little tool and technique and move forward. And if you want more information, you're more than welcome to click on the link above, book a consultation, and let's work together. Much love.